Research Purposes by Frederick Burbage. Read by Penelope McDonald.
The thing about beards is they make your face itch like you wouldn't believe. Is that much of a problem for you?
Jeff Winder asked, passing Neil a screwdriver.
In this spacesuit, yeah?
Neil Vernon remarked, taking the tool and unscrewing an access panel.
We're floating out here on maintenance duty, yet again. And what am I thinking about this whole time? The silent majesty of space?
Jeff offered.
No, I'm thinking I really want to scratch me nose. Just do what I do. See those tab things at the bottom of the visor that you control your heads-up display with? I sort of bend my neck forward and rub my nose on the middle one. Like this?
Neil asked, contorted his neck forward and jabbing the middle tab a little harder than he planned to. The inside of his visor darkened and a display flashed up in front of him, showing a middle-aged man in an official-looking cap. Neil yelped in surprise.
Oh, it's you. Commander Weston here. What do you layabouts want this time? My dignity back would be a start. What? It's nothing, Commander.
Jeff explained.
Neil just had a beard malfunction. We called you by mistake. Is our cutting laser back online yet? We're still working on it. Just get it done. I need this ship underway in 15 minutes. Yes, sir. Neil out.
Weston's face faded from view as Neil nudged the tab again, deliberately this time.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ian Spaghetti Weston, commander of the good ship 6715 Wendigo, oldest serving commander of Volder Scavenging and Recovery Corporation, nursing his very own Napoleon complex and a gigantic pain in my... Your suit mic is still on, Neil. Ah.
Minutes later, and with their work complete, Neil and Jeff were back aboard and removing their suits.
Whenever something breaks around here, and that's every other afternoon on this antique, it's always us that have to repair it. Why do we always get the crap jobs?
Jeff moaned, shoving his helmet into an overhead locker.
Because not only are we the only two people on board who are anything close to engineers, we're in the crap job business, Jeff, where all the jobs are crap. This is the only employment we could get, remember? The two of us, with our entire educations combined, would still be out-qualified by the average domestic cat. If Commander Weston had a choice in the matter, I don't think we'd even be working here. Speaking of which, did you know our illustrious commander bought his own hat? It's not part of Volder's uniform. That's just these blue coveralls. He purchased it himself. Really? It looks ridiculous. The other commanders in the salvage fleet don't even wear hats. Zero gravity up here, you see? Keeps drifting off your head. I've never seen it fall off before. Oh, I know. He modified it. Had it fitted with an elasticated headband so it stays on. All because he thinks it makes him look more authoritative.
Jeff sighed and slipped on his magnetic boots. Just then, the ship's computer technician, Mona Phillips, stuck her head round the door. Briefing time, guys. I know you're all just dying to know what worthless rust-bucket Volder wants us to haul around the cosmos this week.
No, Mona, not in the slightest.
I was being sarcastic.
Can't we just hide down here instead?
Sure. For all of the 20 seconds it'll take the commander to find you in what's probably the smallest ship in the fleet.
Point taken. Lead the way. Late as usual, I see,
Commander Weston said, as his crew filed into the ship's tiny briefing room, taking their seats around the oval table that filled its centre.
Let's get underway before we waste any more valuable time.
Weston swiped his finger across the touch panel at one end of the table, and a shimmering blue hologram of a wrecked spacecraft flickered into life, hovering about a foot off the surface.
One of Volder Corp's automated scout ships spotted this wreck a few hours ago while on routine patrol and flagged it as a target of potential value. We're the closest ship to the crash site, so the job's ours for whatever it's worth.
Details?
Long-range transport shuttle. 0 power output, no life signs, moderate damage where it crashed into one of the larger rocks in this system's asteroid belt. Great. Someone more clumsy at flying spacecraft than I am. Quite. I'm sending all 3 of you over for this one. Neil and Jeff, you'll be searching for salvageable components and cargo. Mona, you'll be using your expertise to see if you can bring their systems back online long enough to get me registry information. I'll oversee the operation from here on the Wendigo. You'll report in when the initial survey is done, and then I'll send the drones in to cut the shuttle free and tow it out.
Soon after touchdown, Jeff, Mona and Neil suited up and made their way out onto the asteroid's dusty, desolate surface. Mona brought up a map screen on her heads-up display. The shuttle's about 200 meters ahead of us, over a small rise.
Wait for us.
I'm not going too fast. Wouldn't want you to miss the scenery. There are some very pretty rocks, and dust, and more rocks. You guys take me to the nicest places.
All part of the job. How'd you end up with this gig anyway?
How do you mean?
It means we're here because, by our own admission, we're a couple of talentless layabouts. With your skills, you could have gotten far better than this job, surely?
Not really. I've sort of got a criminal record.
Blimey. What did you do?
Do we really have to talk about this? It's embarrassing. There was an awkward pause. Mona turned to see Jeff and Neil staring at her expectantly, arms crossed. Mona groaned with resignation. I was 14 and I hacked a local space station's comms network.
That really doesn't sound all that embarrassing.
Well, I might have altered their currency database to demand all transactions be paid in plastic giraffes.
You did what?
I had a toy giraffe called George, and I thought it would be hilarious. The corporation that owned it didn't see the funny side, though. It took them a week to repair the damage I caused. They lost millions, and I lost any chance of a decent future job.
Well, society's loss is our gain. Your technical expertise almost gives the Wendigo the vaguest air of respectability. Almost.
Mona thumped him on the shoulder. Cheeky git.
In other news, shuttle ahoy.
20 meters ahead of them, there it was. A small, lime green, partially mangled shuttle lying at the foot of a large cliff. Well, let's get to work, Mona said, happy to change the subject. The 3 of them hurried up alongside the craft and began surveying the wreck. Jeff rubbed a gloved hand against the hull, clearing some of the accumulated dust off. Under the grime was text.
Corporate Transport Shuttle. Sounds official. Red text on lime green. Someone has terrible taste in shuttle livery.
Jackpot.
Are we in?
Just about. Still enough power in the backup cells to operate the airlock. Possibly life support if the main cabin hasn't been holed. Mona thumped the access control, the door slid open, and the 3 of them piled inside. Sound and air rushed around them as the small antechamber repressurized. Main cabin seems to still have atmosphere. Anyone want to take their helmet off and give it a test? Neil and Jeff looked at each other. Wimps, Mona said, and unclipped her helmet.
Well, is it safe?
Jeff asked, eyes wide with worry. It's fine. A bit stale, but fine. Mona pulled her helmet off entirely. See? Reassured, Jeff and Neil removed their helmets and shuffled into the main cabin. The central section of the craft was filled with rows of seats and luggage racks. Strewn about the dimly lit aisles were random items of baggage shaken loose during the crash. Someone left in a hurry?
Their loss, our gain. Right, Jeff, give me a hand cataloguing the cargo. Mona, there should be a terminal around here somewhere for pulling up registry information.
Found it already, said Mona, plugging a cord into a nearby panel and hooking up her suit computer to it. Data downloading now. Here we go. The shuttle's owners are the Bearclaw Corporation.
Never heard of them.
Neither have I.
Any more info?
I think I can pull some flight data from the navigation systems. Should be able to find its point of origin. Back aboard the Wendigo, Commander Weston had little to do while he waited for his crew to survey the wreck. To alleviate the boredom, he radioed in for a progress report.
Weston here. How are things going out there?
Mona responding. We're about done here. I've pulled all I can from the ship's computer, and we've finished with our initial survey of the ship too. Want me to send the files over?
Transmit away.
Transfer complete.
Good job. See you back on board. Weston out.
Weston closed communications and immediately opened a channel to Volder Corporation's main office to report his crew's initial findings. The female voice of control said,
"Oh, it's you. Hello, Weston. How's the arse end of nowhere treating you?"
Same as ever. Just keeping you updated on this shuttle job. The shuttle's an obsolete model and severely damaged, but it has some scrap value and a few of the electronics components might be worth stripping out.
Sounds entirely unremarkable. Anything else?
My comms officer was able to pull a few flight logs from the navigation computer which may be of interest.
I'm listening.
They indicate the shuttle's point of origin is in-system, a small base on the third planet listed as Bear Claw Research and Development Site 3. Got any information on these Bear Claw people? Might be worth following up, even if it's just to sell what's left of their shuttle back to them.
There was a few seconds' pause.
Not much showing on the database. Company name registered 10 years ago, filed for bankruptcy 5 years ago, closed for business shortly afterwards. Some sort of fringe science outfit by the sound of things. Cutting-edge electronics and the like. I imagine this base has been long since abandoned.
Salvage opportunity?
Your call. Questionable if there's anything left after 5 years, but if there is, it might be worth the effort. Anyway, I'm going to cut this short. I've got another ship reporting in. I'll assume that's everything, and I'll expect your final report when the job's done. Control out.
Questionable or not, Weston's mind was made up. He hauled crashed shuttles around every other day. The chance to recover experimental technology was too good an opportunity to pass up. He switched the comms unit over to the crew's channel.
Weston here. Return to the ship. There's been a change of plans.
Jeff, Mona and Neil were back on board minutes later and removing their suits.
What's this all about? We never have a change of plans. There's a first time for everything. I'm officially putting the shuttle recovery on hold. In light of Mona's recovered navigational data, we're going to head to the shuttle's point of origin, an abandoned research base on the third planet of this system. It could be a great salvage opportunity, and we certainly don't get many of those. Sounds more promising than a busted-up shuttle, at least. Fair enough. Should be a change of scenery. I'll set course.
Weston straightened his cap.
I've got a good feeling about this already.
The trip was a short one, and less than an hour later, Wendigo made its descent into the third planet's atmosphere.
Brace yourselves, folks,
Neil said, as the ship passed through a cloud bank and into the base's airspace.
Mona, find me a place to set this thing down.
Mona flicked on a nearby screen. Okay, I can see some landing pads near a small courtyard on the external cameras. Bring us down there.
I hate landing on planets. Now, being on them, perfectly fine with that. Being able to wander around without special shoes, not having to fasten everything down. It's just that initial bit, after you spent weeks in zero gravity, and suddenly your entire body weight hits you like a crate full of anvils.
There was a sudden jolt as they touched down. Weston was unstrapped and upright almost immediately, flushed and eager to get going.
Come on, you lot. There's money to be made,
he said, ushering the others into the airlock. Weston was first out, stepping excitedly out onto the tarmac. He took a moment to breathe in the cool early afternoon air while the rest of his crew disembarked. Jeff followed behind him and took in the scenery. Just off the landing pads ahead of them lay the courtyard Mona had spotted on the cameras. From the centrepiece of the area, the words Bear Claw Corporation carved out of a large slab of granite, to the stone benches positioned around the perimeter, every surface was coated in a fine layer of dirt and moss.
Either this place has long been abandoned, or it's the cleaner's day off. Try decade off. There's a good few years of growth on those trees over there.
Mona pulled out a datapad from her overall pocket and switched it on. Let me hook into the ship's sensors a second.
Any signs of life?
Checking now, and... nope. Nothing but trees and insects. No squatters, no feral guard dogs, nothing. The Bear Claw base is pretty much the only man-made structure on the planet. Everything else is just forest as far as the eye can see.
Well, let's get cracking then.
Weston rubbed his hands together and set off across the courtyard towards the entrance to the base. The doors were wide open, and he strode purposefully inside into a small reception area, his crew tagging along behind. Ahead of them was a board with a layout of the base.
Where to first? Power is a priority first and foremost. Jeff, take Neil and head over here, to the generator plant, and see if you can get it back up and running, at least so we have some lighting. I'll take Mona and head to this wing of the building.
He slid his finger across the diagram, leaving a track mark in the layer of dust.
Where most of their weapon labs seem to be. Good enough place to start searching for salvageable technology. Radio in when you're done and we'll regroup back here.
Volder Scavenging and Recovery Corporation were the carrion crawlers of Alliance space, sweeping star systems for wrecks and debris in a business that was very much about making money from other people's misfortune. Brynner Stiles, on the other hand, considered his job a little more proactive. He was a pirate, and most of the misfortune he profited from, he also caused. Piracy had been good to Stiles over the years, and the money had bought him a ship and a crew to terrorize the nearby systems. His latest and most profitable venture was tapping the communication networks of local salvaging firms and listening out for high-value jobs. When he found one, he and his pirate band would drop out of hyperspace at the relevant location, blow the unsuspecting salvage ship out of the sky, and take the loot for themselves. Stiles' first mate Byrne handed the captain a datapad.
As requested, a summary of all data traffic from the specified channels. Excellent. Anything worth our time? Not much this far out. But we did pick up one item of interest. There's a ship located in this asteroid field here. They were on a low-value run to recover a shuttle, but according to their last broadcast, have discovered data revealing a nearby abandoned scientific outpost.
Stiles needed little convincing. Work had been thin on the ground lately.
An abandoned research base. A bit out of the ordinary, but potentially filled with experimental tech. And once we've offed another bunch of intergalactic scrap merchants, as for the taking. Anything else worth my attention? Nothing, sir. Then it's decided. Set course right away. Aye, aye, Captain. I'll ready the crew. Prep the shuttle for a full complement. I want the whole crew down there to sweep and clear the base. Weapons? Sidearms only. Much more sporting. Salvage crews don't put up much of a fight.
Byrne nodded in agreement and marched off. Stiles allowed himself the briefest of self-satisfied smiles.
6715 Wendigo. Won't know what it'm.
Back on the base, Neil and Jeff had found the generator room.
How's it looking? Nothing too serious. It's held up pretty well considering. I've bypassed most of the failed components. Won't be perfect, but it should last long enough to get the job done. Try the switch over there.
Jeff flicked the power switch. Nothing happened. Neil frowned at the generator, then thumped the side of its casing with his fist. The old machine suddenly hummed into life.
Percussive maintenance never fails. You've got the touch. Every time I hit something, it tends to stop working. Don't jinx it. What's the power output like?
Jeff slipped a datapad out of his pocket.
Nominal mostly. Still a few outages here and there, but it should be enough. If your job's worth doing, it's worth doing barely adequately. That's funny. I'll try. No. Funny peculiar. I'm getting some sort of signal interference coming from somewhere now the generator's working. Odd. When we meet back up with the others, I'll get Mona on it just in case. Commander, Lights should be coming back on now.
As he spoke, the ceiling lamps flickered into life.
About time. We'll meet you back at reception in 5 minutes.
Neil pocketed his radio once more and headed for the door.
Off we go then. Hold up a second. Did you hear something just then? What, apart from Spaghetti's grating voice? No, not that. Could have sworn I heard landing jets outside. Are you sure? I mean, who else would be out here? Are you sure you didn't just hear the wind? That loud? I'm not exactly an expert. We can always check the pads outside if you're that bothered. I am moderately bothered, Neil. Fine then. Can't hurt to be sure, I suppose. All right then, lead on.
The two of them stepped out into the corridor and began making their way back to the front entrance when Jeff stopped suddenly.
Tell me you heard that. Jeff, what the hell are you whispering for? I swear I just heard voices off in the distance. It could be the Commander and Mona. They're probably back in reception already. No, I swear it was 2 men talking. Maybe more. Hard to tell. You're sure? I can't hear a thing. I'm sure. There's someone else in here with us. Well, let's find out.
Neil crept up the corridor and peered cautiously round the corner. Further up, he caught sight of 2 gruff-looking men in full battle dress.
Oh, God, you were right. Well, what do you see? 2 guys up ahead, dressed for a ground war and carrying laser pistols and combat knives. I'm guessing they're not the friendly type. Who the hell are they? Private military contractors? Pirates are much more likely. They must be here for the same reason we are. What are we gonna do? Keep quiet for a start? If they spot us,
Neil was cut off as his radio suddenly burst into life.
Are you two back at reception yet?
Neil frantically covered his pocket with both hands to try and drown out the noise, but it was too late. The 2 figures down the corridor had heard it and broke into a jog, hurrying in the direction of Neil and Jeff.
It came from over here. Remember the captain's orders? Shoot to kill.
Jeff and Neil stared at each other in horror.
Run!
Yelled Neil, and the 2 of them fled in the opposite direction. In the research wing, Weston tried the radio again.
Neil, you useless arse! Answer me! Still nothing. Why isn't he answering?
Search me? Maybe his transmitter is... Suddenly, Weston's radio burst into life.
Pirates!
Neil's frantic voice yelled through the speaker.
Bloody pirates! Pirates on the base! Armed pirates! Run for your life!
Is this your idea of a joke?
The muffled sound of blaster fire came back in response.
You hear that? Does that sound like I'm bloody joking?
Neil and Jeff stampeded down a corridor as fast as they could manage, desperately trying to stay ahead of their armed pursuers. They ran round a corner as another salvo of gunfire whizzed past. Up ahead of them, the corridor ended in a single door. Grabbing the handle, Neil shoulder-barged his way in, and, once Jeff was safely through, slammed it shut. They found themselves in a small break room. "Help me move this in front of the door," Jeff called, trying to push a large fridge towards the entrance. Neil put all the force he could muster behind it and shoved it forwards, just as the 2 pirates following them reached the door.
This won't hold them for long. What are our options? No windows, no conveniently oversized vents. We're trapped in here. What the hell do we do? Oh, God, we have to go back the way we came. I'd agree with you if there weren't 2 angry guys with guns back there. Hang on, I've got an idea. Do you remember a few months back when you attempted to repair the Wendigo's coffee machine and managed to turn it into a steaming hot water cannon? Yeah, thanks for reminding me. It put us out of action for a week while the maintenance crew fixed all the water damage. They banned us from ever having a coffee machine again. Why are you bringing that up?
Neil pointed to a cabinet at the back of the room. Across the front read the words, Cyrus Dark Roast.
Do you think you could do it again with that one? Seriously? Well, I'm currently frightened out of most of my wits, and therefore can't think of a better idea, so yes. Look on the bright side. It's not like they're going to take it out of your wages this time.
Jeff weighed up his options for a moment, and sighed.
I'll see what I can do. Well, hurry! I can feel this thing starting to shift.
Jeff pulled the front of the coffee machine open and started poking around in its inner workings.
Different model. Ours was fitted for 0G. But I think I can do something with this. Then stop dithering about and get on with it,
pleaded Neil, putting all his weight into stopping their pursuers breaching the doorway. There was an awkward moment of silence while Jeff got to work.
There. I bent the temperature regulator out of shape and tampered with the pressure controls.
He wrenched the end of a hose out from behind the cup dispenser.
Ready? Go for it.
Neil stepped away from the refrigerator as the pirates rammed the door, causing the kitchen appliance to lurch forwards. Another shove, and it was flung out of the way as their pursuers burst in, guns raised.
Now!
Jeff bashed the water button and pointed the hose towards the open door. The two pirates had no time to react as he unleashed a blast of scalding hot liquid into their faces, throwing them into a thrashing blind panic.
Run for it!
Jeff and Neil shoved their way past the two dazed, howling pirates and back into the corridor outside. Across the base, Weston and Mona were headed back to reception. Are you sure about this? I mean, wasn't that gunfire on the radio? That can't be a joke, surely.
As far as those two are concerned, nothing is true until I've proven otherwise. We'll find out what's going on soon enough.
As the two of them turned a corner, a column of armed men marched into view.
Sooner than you think, old man. Who the hell are you people?
The leader of the group stepped forward, pausing briefly for dramatic effect.
I am Brynner Styles. These fine gentlemen are the vicious pirates under my command. And you? Well, frankly, who cares? We're here to shoot you and loot the base. So first name terms aren't strictly necessary, are they?
Back the other way, hissed Mona, and pulled Weston back around the corner, a blast from Styles' pistol narrowly missing his head. The two broke into a run.
Hunting season, boys! Go bag me some salvagers!
Styles yelled, firing a shot off into the ceiling like a starting pistol. His men marched forwards, weapons raised. Mona and Weston took the first opportunity they could to exit the corridor and the pirates' line of fire, and, short of breath, barged through a door marked Class D Product Storage. Beyond was a large warehouse, filled with rows of shelving, crates, and machinery that seemed to have just been dumped haphazardly.
Jackpot! We can lose them in here.
Look at all this stuff.
No time for rubbernecking, Phillips,
Weston snapped. The two salvagers raced into the maze of shelves, ducking behind a row of boxes, just as the pirates chasing them kicked the door open.
Trying to hide?
Mona heard Styles yell.
It just draws things out. You'll still be dead in the end. The longer it takes to find you, the longer I'll take to kill you. Why not come out now and get it over with?
His rhetoric was met with silence.
Well, don't say I didn't offer,
Styles sneered, motioning his crew.
You lot, fan out. Search this place row by row. Drive the weaselly little bastards out.
Can you get a layout of this wing on your datapad? There has to be another way out of here, or we're toast.
Way ahead of you,
Mona whispered back, prodding at the screen in her hands.
Well,
we're toast.
unless we can find a way past them.
Like what? They'll find us any...
Wait! Keep your voice down!
Weston hissed. The searching pirates were getting slowly closer.
I've got an idea,
Mona said, tapping away on her datapad. Okay, here we go.
Here what goes?
The lights in here are wired for remote control. I think I can bypass the network security and shut them off.
And we can sneak out in the confusion. Great idea. How long will it take?
About that long. The lights blinked out, and the room was pitch black. Shafts of light flickered into life up ahead of them, cutting through the darkness. Flashlights. They've got bloody flashlights.
This is getting horribly tiresome. Burn, this is boring me. Shine some light on those crates over there. Let's see what's in them. This is a research base after all. Maybe there's something here I can have fun killing these bastards with.
Burn hovered his flashlight beam over a cluster of storage boxes.
Most of these are labelled. Air filtration prototypes, experimental fuel cells. That one over there is full of stun guns. Nothing exciting me so far, Burn. Keep looking.
Burn's light passed over a tall metal box off to one side. Roughly the size of a wardrobe, the crate had yellow lettering stamped across the front.
What about this one?
Styles read the writing out aloud.
Wearable Warfare Division, Power Suit Prototype. I like the sound of that. Grants the user increased strength or something, do you think? Crack it open.
Burn drew his sidearm and fired a shot at the clamp holding the crate shut, the blast tossing the front open with a clang. Inside were 5 black, full-body jumpsuits. Their surfaces were an interlocking pattern of wires and metal with a small control box mounted on a chest plate.
Who wants to play guinea pig?
Styles asked his assembled crew. An eager pirate raised his hand. Burn unhooked a suit from the crate and passed it to him.
Get out of your armour and try this on for size.
The volunteer hurriedly did as he was told, pulling on the suit like a pair of overalls. As soon as he zipped up the back, the entire surface of the outfit lit up like the lights of a distant city at night.
I look like a bloody space station. Doesn't matter what it looks like. Does it do anything? Try lifting something heavy.
The volunteer shrugged and walked up to a nearby forklift truck.
Will this do? Go for it.
The volunteer gripped the underside of the truck and felt the suit tense up. And, pulling upwards, the forklift flipped sharply over like a table in a bar fight.
Bloody hell. Felt like it was made of paper.
Styles smiled.
You 4, get the other suits on. 5 of you can move crates and shelves effortlessly in these. We'll weed the salvages out in no time.
The men suited up and soon got to work, pushing boxes and storage equipment aside as they cleared the room.
Nowhere to hide,
Styles yelled triumphantly.
Come out now. I won't make it quick, but I can always make it slower. Has someone turned the heating up in here? I suddenly feel really warm.
One of the suited pirates was starting to perspire. Styles turned to him.
Sweating already? Me too,
said another, wiping a hand against his forehead.
You're in a suit that augments your strength. You can't seriously tell me this is hard work. It's not that,
the pirate said, pulling back his collar. Beads of sweat trickled down the pirate's face.
It's the temperature. Less whining, more searching, boys. I'm wearing 2 layers of clothing and a suit of armour, and I'm not feeling it. You really can't feel it? It's getting hotter. Look, I've never...
He paused a moment, sniffing the air.
Wait a second. Are those bastards trying to start a fire?
Instead of a reply, Styles got a panicked yelp in response. He turned his head and saw the nearest suited pirate staring horrified at the control unit on his chest. Thin streams of acrid smoke rose from it.
I'm on fire! I'm on bloody fire!
He flailed at his fellow power-suited crew members for help, only to find they too were starting to smoke.
Get him off! Get him off!
Yelled Styles. The nearest pirate reached for his zip, but as he did so, the surface of his suit flared, the lights blazing brightly enough to illuminate the nearby shelves with an eerie yellow glow. They grew brighter still for a moment. Then the lattice of wires between them exploded, setting the suit alight around its now screaming occupant. The burning crewman thrashed blindly around, howling in agony as the fire consumed him. The other suited pirates looked on in horror for a moment, before they too flashed brightly and burst into flames. At the opposite end of the room, Weston saw an opportunity.
Come on, now's our chance. Run for the door.
The 2 salvagers climbed over the crate they were hidden behind and bolted for the exit. Mona and Weston ran as fast as they could, sure the pirates would figure out they'd escaped in the confusion. Rounding a corner, they collided with two men coming the other way. It was Neil and Jeff. Oh, thank God! I thought for a minute the pirates might have got to you.
Very nearly.
How did you find us?
Wasn't too difficult. We just followed the sound of screaming pirates. What the hell happened? No time to explain. There's still a good dozen pirates back there, and they're headed this way. We need somewhere to hide. Here!
Jeff hissed under his breath and ushered everyone into a side room.
Get under the desks.
The four of them hurriedly ducked out of sight, and just in time. A moment later, the pursuing pirates thundered down the corridor at top speed. Nobody dared move until the sounds of their marching feet had faded from hearing. I think they're gone.
That was close. What is this room for, anyway?
Neil asked, looking around the rows of computers.
The sign on the way in said Records Office, I think.
Perfect. Just the opportunity we need to dig up more data on this place. She dashed over to the nearest computer.
Have we got time for this?
Just give me 5 minutes, okay?
Fine. First sign of pirates, though, when we're out of here.
Mona seated herself at a desk and touched the screen in front of her. A cheery male voice spoke through the computer's speakers.
Welcome to the Bearclaw Corporate Database. Please state your username.
Great. Gimmicky voice interfaces. Mona Phillips.
User not recognized. Do you require assistance?
Hi. I'm new? Recent hire? I'm the new IT specialist, here to perform a database audit.
Fair enough. Logging you in.
That worked? Shh! Don't look a gift horse in the mouth. Mona, good work. Now hurry up and get us information.
All right. Keep your hat on, Mona said, pulling up a list of files. Here we go. Management reports, financial overviews, staff roster, storage manifests, active projects list. Let's have a look at their projects list first. There was silence for a moment as she read. Then she suddenly stifled a laugh. Oh, you have got to be kidding. The others looked at her with a mixture of confusion and worry.
Why are you laughing?
Active projects. Homeopathy, cold fusion, orgon energy, phrenology, clairvoyance. There's barely a department here that isn't some sort of crackpot pseudoscience.
What?
And look at this. She opened the staff roster next. Look at the list of positions held here. Chief Crystal Healer, Perpetual Motion Specialist. They're cranks, the lot of them.
This is painting quite the picture. What about the other files?
Give me a sec. Here's their financial records.
Anything interesting?
They were deeply in the red when they shut up shop. The money going out here for workplace accidents and product withdrawals was enormous. I can't see a single thing here they actually made a profit on. Practically everything they ever launched has either funds allocated for a withdrawal on safety grounds or a lawsuit for fraud.
Just great. We came here looking for valuable experimental technology and it's all junk. Or worse, lethal junk. No, that's not.
See for yourself? Mona pointed at the screen. Weston moved her aside and stared, bewildered at the display.
All useless? All of it?
All of it.
We're being chased around by gun-toting psychopaths for nothing?
Looks about the size of it.
Bloody marvellous. Wait a second. Can we send this to the pirates? Show them there's nothing here worth stealing? Would that be enough to get them to leave?
Certainly worth a try. All these terminals are hooked into the same network. Shouldn't be too much trouble to find Captain Styles on the security cameras, establish a direct link with the nearest computer to them and send him a message.
You can do that?
Convicted hacker, remember?
Well, I can't think of a better idea. Go for it.
Styles had set his remaining crew in pursuit of the fleeing salvagers while he surveyed the mess the power suits had caused. 5 men dead, and, so far, nothing to show for it.
Burn! Give me a status report on the salvage crew. I want them found, and I want them dead.
They've given us the slip for now, Captain. I'm taking our remaining men to sweep back the way we came. We must have taken cover in a side room.
I'll rejoin you and the crew when you pass through reception. These bastards better be dead when I get there.
Aye, aye, sir. Burn out.
Styles thumped the wall in rage.
Oi! Captain Cutthroat!
A woman's voice called out behind him. Styles spun round and fired a shot off, blasting a chunk of masonry out of the far wall. There was nobody there.
Where are you? Get out of here and face me, you cowardly little bastard.
You won't get to me that easily. I'm on the computer panel, on the wall behind you.
Styles turned round to face the screen. Mona's head stared back at him.
Hi!
She said, waving at him.
You, one of the salvages from the corridor. What do you want? Come to plead for your life?
Not exactly. I'm sending you a manifest of the research technology still on the base. What we both came here for.
Is this supposed to appease me or something? 'Cause it won't. I mean to kill you. I will kill you. It's just a matter of time.
Just take a look at it. See anything worth all this effort?
The file transfer completed. Styles stabbed a gloved finger at the screen and opened the manifest.
What am I looking at here?
You're looking at the sum total of 5 years of excessive expenditure and fruitless research. 5 years of wasted effort. A catalogue of failed experiments, lawsuits, and half-baked ideas. There's nothing here worth stealing.
Styles waved his hand dismissively.
You'll excuse me if I don't believe you. This is clearly a trick.
It's no trick. Have you seen a single thing worth taking the whole time you were here? Something that didn't explode when you used it?
That was just one.
They're all like that. Check the notes for each entry. What do they say?
Styles read off a few.
Non-functional, non-functional, heat dissipation issues, potential lethality, toxic, potential lethality, radioactive, potential lethality, toxic, renders user's skin permanently green.
See? Every single item here is junk. Not a single item of any value. We made a mistake thinking this place was worth salvaging. Surely you've realised chasing us down isn't worth the effort. Don't you think it's time you called it a day and left?
Styles thumped his fist against the wall.
No, I've lost 5 men to this and I will not leave empty-handed. There has to be something here. I just have to find it.
He began scrolling through page after page of Bear Claw inventory, checking each line for something of potential value. Mona sighed with impatience.
Give it up, I've already...
Wait.
He'd scanned through half the file and was almost ready to admit defeat when something caught his eye in amongst the pages of junk.
Recovered Thargoid technology.
What?
An entire lab over the far side of the base for studying an intact Thargoid spacecraft.
Oh, you have got to be joking.
Burn, change your plans. Gather our remaining crew at the north end of the base. I've found something.
Aye, aye, sir.
Right.
Styles straightened up with renewed purpose.
Idiots they may have been, but they had money. First, I'm bagging myself an alien ship. Then, I'm gonna hunt you down and play a fun little game I call How Many Times Can I Shoot 4 Volder employees before they die a horrible screaming death? Mark my words, Missy. We're not going anywhere.
Well, that could have gone better, Mona sighed, cutting the link to Styles.
So there's something worth salvaging in this place after all. We should hurry. If we start now, we can cut Styles off and claim the ship ourselves.
Nobody moved or said a word.
Well, what are we waiting for? That ship could make this whole venture worth our while. Let's go. Not bloody likely. What? You heard? Not bloody likely. We're not going. They're a bunch of bloodthirsty pirates and we're all completely unarmed. Getting them to leave didn't work, but we still have an opportunity here. They're going to be busy for a few short minutes securing this ship. We should use that to get back to our ship and get the hell out of here. I think we can all agree this job's just not worth the effort. I'm your commander. You don't get a say. I beg to differ. We're salvages, not the crew of a battleship.
Now's as good a time as any to call it a day and get out while we have the chance. You can't do this! What you going to do? Dock our pay? I think I can settle for being poor if the alternative is being dead. This is mutiny!
This is sanity. Mona stepped forwards, pointing a finger at him. Jeff and Neil are right. We've got a small window to get back to the ship and get out of here, and we should take it. Weston threw up his arms and turned away from them in disgust.
Screw the lot of you! You're throwing away the best haul we've had in years. If you won't help, then I'll just go and secure it on my own. You're what? You heard?
Weston said, and stormed off down the corridor.
He's crackers. He's walking into certain death. I'll go after him. You two go back to the Wendigo. I'll try and talk him out of it. Start the engines and wait for us. I shouldn't be more than 10 minutes.
You're sure?
Someone's got to stop him. Might as well be me.
All right. Be careful. Neil did a mock salute, then raced off down the corridor. At the far end of the base, Brynner Styles had already regrouped with his men.
The manifest says there's a ship back here. Thargoid in origin. The logs didn't list it as being moved off-site when they closed down. The idiots just left it here.
They came to a halt outside a set of imposing double doors.
This is it.
The room beyond was enormous, more a hangar than a laboratory. On a raised metal platform in the centre was the ship, a grey, faceted saucer shape over 100 metres in diameter, held in place with rusty scaffolding. Hanging out from underneath it were numerous lengths of thick cabling snaking haphazardly across the floor, connected at the other end to consoles set up to monitor the craft.
Isn't she a beauty? It's bigger than I was expecting. How did they get it in here?
Styles looked up towards the ceiling. A thin crack of light ran from one end to the other.
Looks like they lowered it in through the roof. See if you can fire up the mechanism.
Byrne walked over to the nearest bank of consoles. Using his sleeve to wipe the dust off the nearest one, he peered at the readout.
Here we go. I think I can activate it from here,
he said, pressing an on-screen button. Above the pirates' heads, the roof let out numerous strained creaks and intermittent grinding noises, but resolutely failed to open. A sprinkling of metal fragments fell onto Styles' shoulder.
Shut it off. The machinery must have rusted shut. That's going to be a problem. A minor setback. We'll bring our ship down out of orbit, blast the roof off, and lift it out. Tricky, but I think we can do it without damaging the ship. You think? Have you heard the stories about these things? It usually takes a ship with state-of-the-art armaments to so much as scratch it. It can certainly handle us blasting the roof off. The Thargoids know how to build a battleship. Aye, aye, sir. Shall I take some men back to the ship to prepare? Not yet. The salvagers know this is here. That old man and his crew will be along any moment, and when they do, I want them filled with so many holes their own mothers wouldn't recognise them.
Unfit as Neil was, Weston was in considerably worse shape, and he caught up with the commander after just a few hundred yards.
My lungs are on fire. They're trying to kill me. Not before you get yourself killed, you utter prat,
Neil said, grabbing him by the shoulder.
Stop this now and get back to the ship. You're out of line, Neil. I'm your commanding officer, and I won't have... Stop obsessing over the chain of command for 1 second and listen. Styles has a huge head start on you. He probably has the ship already, and the moment you burst in and try and claim it for yourself, he will shoot you. No, I won't let this entire stupid job be for nothing. Wilder thinks I'm a half-witted has-been, well past his prime. This is the best chance I've ever had to show them what I'm really capable of. Don't get yourself killed because you're too self-obsessed to realise we've already lost. Bugger off, Neil. I can do this. Is there the slightest possibility I can talk you out of this in the next...
He checked his watch.
7 minutes? Because we really don't have time for this. Leave me alone. I'm going for the Thargoid ship, and you're not going to stop me. Final answer? Yes. Then I hope this hurts you a lot more than it hurts me.
Weston had just enough time to flash him a quizzical look before Neil punched him square in the face.
Oh! What the hell do you think you're doing? Shut up and let me knock you out,
Neil said, frantically punching him again. This second hit finally knocked the commander out cold.
Best out of two.
Neil winced, rubbing his knuckles. He crouched down and slung the inert commander over his shoulder, buckling slightly under the load.
My God, you weigh an absolute ton.
He began the slow shuffle back to the ship. Retracing their steps, Mona and Jeff hurried back to the base's entranceway. All quiet, thankfully. Styles must have his whole crew guarding the Thargoid ship.
Good. Let's go.
The two of them raced across the overgrown courtyard, across the landing pads, and into the relative safety of the Wendigo, slamming the airlock shut with relief. No time to catch our breath, Mona said, climbing into the cockpit. We need to get this thing ready to go. Jeff followed her up and sat in the flight seat. He looked out of the window at the ship on the opposite pad.
That must be the pirate shuttle over there. Is there somewhere to put it out of action? Anything to give us enough time to get away?
We've got a cutting laser, right? Mona grinned, seating herself at the controls. This panel. Grabbing the joystick controlling the cutting arm, Mona pointed the laser at the pirate shuttle's engines and fired. Jeff watched through the window as the entire rear of Styles' craft was sliced off in a shower of sparks, dropping onto the pad with a thunderous clang. How's that?
Well, they're not going to fix that anytime soon.
Right, let's warm up the engines. Jeff pressed what he thought was the right button on the navigation panel.
Why is nothing happening?
Because the engine controls are over here. That's the long-range scanners, Mona said, pointing at the scanner display above them. It blinked into life to show a representation of the system they were in.
Wait a second. What are those?
Jeff pointed up at a cluster of blips on the screen.
They're headed towards the planet.
Database cross-referencing? No matches.
I've just had an horrible thought. Back when we reactivated the base's generator, I was checking over the power grid and kept getting signal interference. I think I know what it was. Somewhere down here transmitting up into space.
A distress signal?
Now that I don't know. It's a possibility though.
A signal for who though? Bearclaw?
Not a clue. Can we scan the area for a point of origin?
Give me a sec. I'll triangulate it with the comms equipment. Here we go. Looks like it's coming from a large structure towards the north end of the base.
Weren't the pirates headed up there?
Yeah. Headed to the Wait a second. The Thargoid ship. It must be coming from that. That has to be a Thargoid fleet up there. They know it's here and they're coming down to collect it.
Well, my day just got worse.
Mona opened a communications channel. Come in, Neil. Have you got Weston with you? Hurry the hell up! After a short pause, Neil's laboured voice came through the speakers.
All right. I'm hurrying as fast as I can. Pirates are busy, aren't they? What's the rush?
We've got what I'm fairly sure is an alien battle fleet bearing down on our location, and at their current speed, they should be in orbit within 3 minutes.
A what? In 3 minutes? Right, hang on.
There was a metallic thump, then the radio shut off.
I hope they're okay. I'll keep an eye on the entrance for them. You keep the engines going.
All right, but after 3 minutes we've got to go, with or without them.
Hopefully it won't come to that.
The next 2 minutes were tense.
Come on. Come on!
Jeff said nervously. At this rate, they weren't going to make it. Then, suddenly, movement near the entrance.
Is that them?
Jeff pointed ahead. Mona stood up and squinted through the glass. Can't make it out. Is that someone pushing a cart?
Bloody hell it is. It's Neil, shoving Weston along in a laundry trolley. The commander looks out cold.
Mona raced down to the lower deck and hit the controls for the airlock, just as a frantic Neil dashed into it. They're aboard! Strap in and be ready for takeoff! The inner door to the airlock swung open, and an utterly exhausted Neil dragged Weston inside. What the hell happened to him?
We had a disagreement about whether to leave or not. I won.
Back in the Thargoid lab, Styles was surveying his prize with consummate glee.
There are collectors who pay millions for this. A few words in the right circles, and we could have the biggest ore we've had in years.
Captain Styles?
The first mate said, raising a hand nervously.
What is it, Burn?
I've been checking all the equipment plugged into this thing, and, it seems when power was restored across the base, it also reactivated the previous attempts at supplying power to this thing.
Is it doing anything?
From what I can tell, the ship is leeching energy to power some sort of long-range tracking beacon inside the Thargoid craft. It must have been transmitting for most of the time we've been here.
Transmitting? To other Thargoid ships?
Who else?
I don't want any surprises.
He shoved Burn to one side and stepped up to one of the lab's computers.
Shut it off and get me a live feed of the base's sensor network on this thing.
Burn switched the display over to a map of the system. Several blips were clustered around the third planet.
8 unidentified ships moving into close orbit over the base. It's too late. Someone's already responded to the signal.
They're coming to take our prize,
Styles said, thumping the edge of the display with his fist.
Ready weapons, men. 2 of you stay here. The rest follow me back to the base entrance. We'll take them by surprise when they land.
Styles marched out of the lab, his remaining men in tow. Halfway down the corridor, he caught the sound of a distant rumble.
What the hell was that?
Another rumble answered him, closer this time. The floor shook under his feet.
I've just had an horrible thought,
Burn said.
What if they don't plan on landing?
Don't tire me with riddles, Burn. Get to the point.
My point is, what if they're not here to recover the ship? What if they're here to destroy it? We're assuming this is a rescue mission, but what if they're just cleaning house? Making sure their technology doesn't fall into the wrong hands? If that's the case, why bother collecting the ship when you can just bomb it from the air?
You think they'd just...
Styles was cut short as a blast erupted through the rooms behind him. The force ripped through the corridor, shattering the ceiling into giant chunks of masonry. Styles and Burn threw themselves clear, just as the entire hallway filled with rubble. As Styles tried to clear the dust from his eyes, Burn pulled him to his feet. He felt his hearing slowly return, and the ringing in his ears was soon replaced by the gurgled cries of the dying.
The rest of our crew, they're all dead, or soon to be.
Styles straightened up and brushed himself off, his hands shaking with barely contained rage.
I know.
What are your orders, Captain?
Follow me. We're getting back to the shuttle. We're not done yet.
Styles and Burn soon made it outside, dodging fallen debris as numerous blasts shattered whole wings of the research base to rubble. They sprinted across the courtyard tarmac, the ground shaking under their feet. Their shuttle was at last in sight, and Styles allowed himself a brief sigh of relief. But relief quickly turned to rage and panic when he gazed upon Mona's handiwork.
Great. Just great. This is the icing on the sodding cake.
They sliced the entire bloody drive section off.
I can see that, you monumental idiot.
Well, what do we do?
Styles didn't answer. He just stared up into the sky, transfixed. Overhead, a dozen ships hung in formation, firing on the base. They were grey, faceted saucers, just like the one in the Thargoid lab.
There's a way out of this. There always is. You've got a plan. Tell me you've got a plan. You've always got a plan.
Styles blinked. Another blast rang out, destroying the entranceway behind them.
Captain, tell me you've got a plan.
Styles stared at his first mate for a second, then said in a daze,
I have a plan.
Oh, thank God. Just tell me what to do.
Well,
Well, what?
Styles didn't reply. Another blast rocked the concrete under him, and he already knew this was it. They only had one route off-planet, and it was gone. A thought struck him. You live and learn. Or you do something definitively fatal, and in your dying moments think, this could have been quite a learning experience, were it not for the fact that the lesson I have learned today is, don't do this, it will bloody kill you.
I do not have a plan.
He sighed, speaking for the last time. His first mate's face fell.
Oh.
The two pirates looked skywards at the looming ships, saw a bolt blaze down towards them. In that moment, the Thargoid bombardment finally scored a direct hit on them, blasting both Brynner Styles and Hadrian Byrne into dust on the wind. It was several hours later that Weston finally regained consciousness, nursing both a bruised jaw and a wounded ego. The whole crew were gathered in the sickbay.
Welcome back, Commander. What do you remember? What do I remember? I remember you punching my lights out. That's grounds for immediate dismissal, you bearded ingrate. Mona, bring up the external camera feed of the Bearclaw research base on screen 1, would you?
Beep, said Mona, tapping a button on her handheld display. The sickbay's main computer display was promptly filled with video feed of a giant, smouldering crater.
That happened not long after I socked you in the face. A Thargoid battle fleet showed up and wiped Bearclaw, that pirate captain and his entire crew, off the map. I thought they'd blow us out of the sky for good measure too, but they just bombarded the base for a few minutes, then left.
Weston stared blankly at the image on the screen.
What? If we'd stayed any longer, the Thargoids would have atomised us. I saved your life. You are a bloody hero. Or getting a promotion. You saved my life. You better believe it, spaghetti old son.
Weston was quiet for a moment, finally unable to think of something appropriate to say. Then he managed.
But we left with nothing. All that work, all that running about, and we've got nothing. Well, yeah, that's true. But at least we got out alive, so there's that.
And the other thing, Mona said, nudging Jeff in the ribs.
Oh yeah, the other thing. What?
Weston groaned. Mona tapped her display again, switching the screen over to a map of local space. Two objects were visibly orbiting the third planet.
Two? One is us, in the Wendigo. That means the other must be...
The pirate ship. It's still in orbit, unmanned, and, assuming our sensor grid isn't on the blink again, fully stocked with the ill-gotten gains of a lengthy pirate career. Weston's eyes widened. And it's all ours. Research Purposes was written by Fred Burbidge and performed by Penelope McDonald. The director was Christopher Jarvis, and the series is produced by Dan Grubb. Elite Tales from the Frontier is a radio theatre workshop production for Fantastic Books Publishing.